Hi guys, thanks for joining. This is your realtor Shan from EXP, and I have a very important person that's joined with us today, Vidhu Ramachandran from Ramachandran Law Office. He's the go-to lawyer, and he's actually growing on a very fast pace. Him and his teams just doing deals, and especially they are super busy with this market. Vidhu practices civil litigation, corporate, family, immigration law, real estate, and will and estates. So I'll let with you just do the introduction, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sean, for giving me this opportunity. I always find it very helpful to talk about the changes that's happening in the marketplace so we kind of understand where we are and where we're going. And it gives both realtors clarity and all the partners who are involved clarity as well, and including the clients. And with the new updates, like, TRESA is not it's not a light update. It's not like, a different software update where you don't see the difference. It's a complete overhaul of the underlying system. So TRESA stands for Trust in Real Estate and Services Act. It completely replaces the Real Estate Business Brokers Act of 2002. And this is going to be the primary legislation or regulatory framework for how realtors are going to be judged, what are their requirements, what are they allowed to do, and what they're not allowed to do. And there's significant differences than what has happened in the past. And we're going to go through that. And then, so what we are doing is also, I'm sharing my screen off the Oreo website for all the realtors and everything. I don't like to do a slide deck per se because then everyone needs my slide deck. But this way, even if this presentation is done, you can always go back to the source and get up-to-date information on what's happening.
For sure.
I can't sign in to see the answers, but I'll give you the answers. And then for agents, when you guys sign in, you'll be able to see your answers yourselves. Okay, so context-wise, where did this come from with this idea? This actually started in 2016. And it started because of a CBC Marketplace video where they took hidden cameras and exposed 6 agents for having shady, unethical practices, double ending, misleading clients, and everything. And there's a huge public outcry that came out of that marketplace expose. And then so government had to do something. You got angry people. So they're like, hey guys, like, this is not cool. How are we going to fix it? And mind you, from 2016, we're at the end of 2023. It took 7 years to make these changes. However, TRESA has 3 rollout phases, and this is rollout 2. TRESA actually started in rollout 1 when it actually started announcing that real estate agents can form PRECs, the Professional Real Estate Corporation. That was actually phase 1 of TRESA. Okay. We're going into phase 2 of TRESA, which is like more of a substantive change on the dynamics of parties. And it really came with the biggest issue that the marketplace and government was facing was how do we control conduct of agents who are multiple representatives. The problem becomes if you are signed up with a listing client, the listing client wants to sell the house for the most amount of money. Naturally. And if you have representing a buying client, the buying client wants to buy for the least amount of money. These are 2 paradoxes. They don't really mesh. Like because if you want to really, get the most amount of money for the seller and you're in a multiple rep, that means you have to kind of not serve the buyer's best interest. And it's a very fine line that you play with. And this became too problematic for marketplace and for government. They're like, no, we need some kind of rules. Originally from 2016 with the expose, the goal was to ban multiple representation completely. Then industry got involved and lobbied and said, let's not ban it, but can we put some tighter regulations on it and give an alternative? So now multiple representation is not banned. It still exists, but now but it still has this new thing called designated representation. And we're going to go through these 2. In REBAs, in the old framework, you have people called clients. These are the people you sign listing agreements with or buyer representation agreements with initially. And sometimes if you're a listing agent, a buyer comes to your house, says, show me the house. You show it, they like it. They're like, can we just work with you to make it? And there might be a discount on the fees for the seller. And you were able to do that. And you just get a customer form filled out and they become a customer. due to all the backlash, the customer thing is completely X'd. There is no more customer at all. These individuals who call you and to say, can you show the house that you've listed, are called self-represented parties. So if they're a self-represented party, that's exactly what they are. They're completely self-interested, self-rep. That means even if the selling agent assists in some sort of manner, which must be limited, and we'll get to that, the agent will not get compensated for any work he does or she does with a self-rep party. And there's lots of disclosure that needs to be given in order to lots of disclosure that needs to be given when you're dealing with a self-rep party. So a multiple representation scenario happens when you do both. But now in today's multiple rep, before you just had to tell the client, is like, hey, a buyer came in, I'm going to put in an offer for them as well.
Okay.
Now you must get a disclosure. Again, all these new rules have come in, but they don't have the new forms. There's a form that, and the theme of today is going to be there's a form for everything. So there's a new form that's coming. If you're in a multiple rep, the seller client has to agree and understand the risk of them accepting you to be in a multiple offer presentation. And repping the other side. Sorry, I'm just going to close this. They have to understand the risk. My apologies.
No, you're busy. No worries.
No. I just want to stop the notification. Okay. So in the multiple rep, the seller has to sign this document. But the marketplace is basically saying that if you tell all the negatives of what happens to the seller's interest if your own agent double ends you, the likelihood of them signing are going to be much lower than it was in the old framework. And since you've given disclosure to the client, the selling client, this client cannot come after you anymore. This is all about protecting the insurance claims that are about to happen, right? It's all about big money being protected. And that's why we're going to sign away all these forms. So now we signed. So the first new form is that we're talking about is this waiver and disclosure with respect to list sellers when their own client wants to multiple rep a buyer. So even if we step behind this, we have the listing agreement, right? That's really the first document. You go to a listing presentation to get the client, you do a listing agreement. That listing service agreement is completely changing. So now in a listing service agreement, again, these new forms should be out. But they released it, and then they said, no, we're taking it back because we had to edit it. They're not out. What is going to happen is way more clarity on how you enter into a deal, how long the deal is going to be, what is the agent going to do for you, and if it doesn't work, how are the agents going to get paid, both seller and buyer, and how you could exit. Because there's a lot of problems when people sign listing agreements or even buyer representation agreements. Clients don't know how to walk away from it. Or they don't know what a protocol to exit.
And that scares them too, right?
So they stuck with the service provider they're not happy with. Often. So listing agreement. Now with the term has to be outlined. The client has to initial beside the term. The selling agent must list on the listing service section exactly or roughly what are they going to provide in the service package. Are you going to do MLS photos? Are you going to do signs? Are you going to do flyers, postcards, open houses, staging, everything? So you actually have to list it out. You don't have to say, oh, I'm going to print 2,000 flyers, but you have to say, I'm going to do flyers. Because if you don't deliver on that and the house is not sold, the seller could come after you for a failure to perform. So it keeps an honor system, right? You told me you're going to get my listing and I'm going to pay you whatever, 2.5%, 2-3% on the listing for all these services. If you don't do it and my house doesn't sell, well, then you didn't perform your end of the bargain.
It's pretty straightforward too, right? It holds the agents accountable. So it's like just sending out a text or anything. You have something in written. It makes it easy.
Exactly. So if there's an insurance claim, everyone is clear. So that's the theme of all this, right? So it's like the client understands what they're going to get and what they're not going to get. And for an agent, I tell agents that I speak to, I'm like, this is a great time to really hone in your listing presentation. So this is your value proposition and you're writing it down. And they get to see directly, this staging is worth $5,000, $6,000. I'm giving you $20,000 package. I'm only charging you 2.5% on your house, which is $1 million, which is 25. You're already getting 20,000 of value. Really, I'm making 5,000 after taxes. What am I making? You could really build a presentation around it. So like that's like it's more work for you guys. As you'll see, the theme of this is more paperwork, but it's a great opportunity to sell yourself even better. So we talked about term, services, and now this listing agent, the seller must enter into the agreement what is the fee they want to pay for a seller agent and the buyer agent separately. So the seller could be like, hey, you know, Sean, I love your service. I want you to take 3.5%, and co-op agent 1.5%.
Oh, wow.
And then that's up to you and the agent to really, the client and the agent to really work out what is the marketplace like. In a hot market, and if you have a hot property, you could say, okay, 1.5% is all I'm going to give you, buying agent.
Yeah, and it's going to go.
It's going to go. Yeah. But in a tougher market, you better be like, hey, if we're doing 5, maybe we could cut down on certain things, and let's give the buyer agent a bit more, and you could start working with it strategically on how you're going to really break this down.
Yeah.
So on the listing service agreement, this is what it is, and there's going to be more clarity and a separate section on how to terminate. Seller, if you don't like this brokerage or agent, these are the ways you could terminate. It'll be spelled out, so they exactly know how to get out of the deal. Okay.
So no more beating around the bush when it comes to buying or selling. It's all straightforward stuff.
Because your insurer got involved and said basically, guys, we can't have these gray areas. These are the problems we're having. We can't have these gray areas. Fix it. So, which is great, right? It's just clarity, right? Good. You know, you deliver your word, they deliver money, everyone's happy. So that's the listing service agreement component. And where this goes is we're really focusing and going to the self-rep party. Hold on, I'm gonna go to There's actually a guide. So now let's say Sean has a listing. Sean, a buyer drives by, calls the number on the sign saying, hey, Sean, I saw your listing. House looks great from the outside. Come see it. Before, Sean is like, yes, I'm going to be there in 10 minutes. I'm going to show it to you right away. Yeah. Right? Now, Sean is going to be like, I'm going to be there in 10 minutes. We're going to have a 15-minute presentation before I can even walk you in. And that's where we're starting this part with. One second. Let me get to... oops. The guide. There we go. So this is where it starts with. These are your obligations now as an agent on how to deal with these people who are these self-reps. So even before you could open the door and show the form, you need to have this done, time-stamped before you provide the service. If not, you're in breach. And we're going to get to the new disciplinary and the new guidelines on what the powers of RICO and ORIA are under the new ones. So when you do it, you have to give a disclosure package, a 13-page disclosure package to each person that you meet who wants to come and do a tour with you to be able to show it. And so this talks about what is a self-rep party. This is a short form. And this is, so this is a short form. So what is a self-rep party? Is a person who doesn't have an agent. They're self-rep. And you have to tell them that, hey, there's underlying risk by being self-rep, because I don't protect your interests. I don't protect the interests of the seller, and I got to do whatever I got to do in order to maximize the money for my client, the seller. So go get an agent. And there's things that you cannot do to self-reps. For example, after this, let's say we're going to go through the form, or once we go through the form, they sign off on it. So I'm going to go take you to the form. This one is a 13-page package. I'm working with a real estate agent. You're gonna take it to the guide, and it's basically a sell sheet for how they can become your client on the buy side. And so it's been pitched really well. Yeah, it sounds like a lot of work, but if you do this properly, you're basically able to convert a self-rep into at least 48-hour BRA. It's like, okay, why don't you work with me for two days? 48-hour BRA. Let me show you some properties. If it works, it works. If not, after 48 hours, no obligation. So you got to explain to them, if you're a seller on the other side, what an agent can do. If you actually have an agent, if it's a buyer, what are all the things that an agent can provide you? These are the value propositions that you have. And then if you also become a client, you have undivided loyalty, you get disclosure, you get confidentiality, and we avoid conflict of interest because I'm loyal to you. To a client, basically you owe the highest fiduciary duty to them. And when you are representing yourself now, this is a scary component. These are the risks to that individual. And you got to say that, hey, the real estate agent is working for another party. There's nothing being hidden here. It's in big green letters. Right? And then see that the agent cannot. It specifically tells you, you cannot provide any opinion. So let's say you open the door. They go through this document, they sign it, you open the door, they go on a tour. You cannot provide any other services. You cannot give an opinion on price. You cannot give advice that they can rely on to make a decision. You cannot do anything that would encourage them to do anything based on your skill set, experience, knowledge. And they cannot discourage you from working with another broker. They could say that they can't say that, oh, you got to come to me. You got to say that, hey, working with an agent, these are the benefits. And so it's like what you could do is very limited.
You're basically just opening the door and that's it, right?
That's it, because they got to figure it out themselves. That's where we're going. And even in an offer, they got to put the offer together themselves. They could either hire a lawyer, they could go on Law Depot, they could probably find some discount person to do it for $500, but they got to do it themselves.
So, but Vithu, is it true that you could kind of give them not advice, but you could help them with the paperwork, as in terms of, is it true that, or did I miss it?
You could tell them which forms to use. But you can't be giving advice on what clauses, what not to do, potential down payment, potential pricing. That's all their problem. Because you're not going to get paid for it either. Right. So they don't want you to do it. And then, this is more you have to explain. Remember, you got to explain to every single person who calls you and wants you to open the door for them, all these things, what to look for in a representation agreement, the scope, the services, payment amount, how they could terminate, the holdover clause. You got to teach them about multiple representation, the pros and cons, that you could refuse multiple representation. And then how to make a complaint if your agent violates this, and then they sign this off. So this is going to become like a document on their phone, like a DocuSign that's going to go through your portal that you'll be able to text. I'll be able to text Sean's cell phone number. Like, Sean, you want to see this house? Hey, this is a disclosure I need you to review. Once you review it, please sign off on it saying you've acknowledged it. So it's not like you have to print this 13-page document and have them physically sign it and everything.
I actually did that a few minutes ago. So basically you just put your information, brokerage information, the person who's receiving it, and then you'll get a confirmation saying, okay, you sent it to this person with the date and time.
And you need the date and time before you open the door. That's where they're going to get you. So you have to make sure they do this. But imagine 10 people call you and want to do this. How many hours are you going to be spending explaining this? So at one point, you're going to be like, yo, either I don't want self-reps, go bring an agent, or if you are, you got to sign like a BRA or something with me before I even start. Because it's not like, for the first couple of times you'll do this, but imagine 10 people call you. Like you can't even talk about, you could just say, my client wants $799 for this property on 90-day close, which is on the listing sheet anyways. But you can't get into anything else really, unless they're coming in as a self-rep. They sign the disclosure, then they're a self-rep party, then they could talk to them as if they're the opposite side. Right? So it becomes very challenging for listing agents to do this on a volume basis.
Okay.
So, which is good because we want these self-reps out. We want them represented by a realtor or brokerage. So, and if they do want to work with you, there's two options now, right? We go back to the multiple rep if they sign a multiple rep, or if not, they go become a designated rep. So designated rep means basically this person wants to work with you, but your client, the seller, doesn't want to sign a multiple rep listing, but you don't need to lose a lead. This is where your brokerage comes into play. So you would then contact the broker of record or whoever the broker has assigned as a designated lead, and they would then take over that client or reassign that buyer to another agent within their brokerage to be running as an independent agent on the other side.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, the brokerage is the one who makes money on both sides, but they're going to be completely, we call it Chinese walled out, basically conflicted out, saying that, hey, they're going to get the same information that any other agent from any other brokerage would do and would have to come in raw. And that is going to become a requirement. And so the onus is now on the brokerages, not only to monitor all this paperwork, but to also have all these designated representatives available at any single time.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So now the onus is really going to be on the brokerages to do the compliance. Basically, the insurer said, yo, I want all these things so my back is saved. I'm not going to have claims. But now it's a brokerage's problem. So brokerage, you run the compliance, you run all these documentation, you make sure everything's good and complete. Because if not, it's your license we're going to come after.
Right.
And you're who we're going to start fining. And we're going to talk about the new regulatory framework later, which this all feeds into.
Okay.
So that is basically this multiple representative versus designated representative component. Okay. So you're going to have much more involvement with your broker of records and your brokers because they're going to come into play a lot. So another thing we'll talk about is the exposure of sorry, I'm trying to get okay. One of the things that they're really going to start working on is another thing that was happening was the shadow bidding. So people were saying, oh, I have 24 offers, 23 offers, 21 offers, and they were really increasing the amount of offers or the amount of offers. Now the seller it's completely the seller's right to disclose the amount of information that the seller wants to disclose to the other side. But when they disclose it to the other side, they have to disclose it to all of the other sides. So if there's 5 opposing agents, you have to expose it to all 5. The only thing you cannot expose is the name, confidential information like name, their ID. Yeah, you have to black that out. But how much you want to disclose is also a strategy now. Okay. Do you want to just expose the price? Do you want to expose nothing? Do you want to expose the closing date? Do you want to just hide everything and expose only the schedule? To say, yo, this is no condition. So it's up to the listing agent
on how they want to play this
strategy and how to play this with the seller. But it's the seller's call to make on whether to disclose or not, and they have to sign off. Yeah. Another form for this. And if halfway through the listing presentation, if the seller says, hey, I don't want you to disclose anymore, they'll sign the form. You have to stop disclosing. You have to tell everyone from this point forward, my seller has said there's no more disclosure. So in a cold market like now, disclosing might get better for you to get maybe $100 or $200 or $1,000 more. But in a hot market, you don't want to disclose. You would just say, I have 5 offers, hide the price, just show the schedule and show the closing date. Yeah. And say, you come up with another offer if you're interested. So you could really jump it by 10, 20, 30, 40K, right? Sure. In a cold offer, you'll be like, hey, if someone's on the fence, one offers and you can show them, like, hey, can you do better than this? And even make a little bit more is better, right? Yeah, so that's where the listing services, the disclosure of offers that comes in. Yeah. So another thing is, okay, we wanted to talk about is this regulatory framework. So now appeals is not done by RICO anymore. Appeals is going to go to licensed appeal tribunal. So it's completely into the court system. It's not into the regulatory administrative body system. And RICO now has the ability, because before, unless a client complains, they can't investigate an agent.
Oh yeah, now they can do it without it, right?
Because with all this expose and everything, they're like, shit, how are we going to control this if this ever happens to us again? So they're like, without even receiving a formal complaint, we have the power to investigate. So they can start an investigation against Sean for doing, Sean may have no complaint that he knows about, but he'll get a notice saying, hey, we're starting an investigation against you.
Yeah.
So that's good and bad, depending on how many friends and enemies you've made in the industry.
That's true. That's true.
Right. So you have to be very careful. But basically, they have more tools. They could fine you for a lot of things, like not filling out these disclosure forms, timing doesn't match, fine you. Find the brokerages. Your agents are not doing this. You haven't controlled them. Find the brokerages.
Okay.
So it puts a lot more onus on the brokers to control their agents.
Yeah.
Right. Before the brokers are like, I can't control my agents, but now it's like, okay, if you don't want to do, you keep getting fined, brokers, right? And then that means you will then control your agent.
When the money is involved, when the money fine is involved, everyone's gonna be fire.
Yeah. So that's where we're going. So that's basically the framework of where we're going with TRESA, right? So some other questions that you had posed to talk about is, what should sellers look out for when it comes to costs and clauses? One of the big things that sellers really get stuck on is rental products, right? Yeah. It's always something that gets missed. It doesn't get transferred. Property taxes are not canceled. And then what happens is you move and a month later you get pre-authorized debit. Your hot water tank takes it out.
Yeah.
Or your property tax is pre-authorized and they keep taking it out. Yeah. So we make sure when we do an intake, on our practices, when we do an intake, we say, hey, it's your obligation. Please cancel all the pre-authorized services for this house.
Okay, that's
so you know what they are. Do a stop payment. It's okay. Right, you'll deal with it later. And then if the buyer doesn't transfer, okay, what is it? So we ask for all that information. What are some legal considerations when home buyers need to know? Right now, the biggest issue we're having is houses not coming in the appraisal. So make sure the house price you're buying is relative to market, and we get your appraisal done right away when you buy, even if you're closing in 3 months, because most lenders will honor the appraisal. So make sure you do that, because you're able to not have to come up with the difference.
Okay.
We're having a lot of problems with builder deals not coming with appraisals. But what people are forgetting is that we tell them is like, hey, who is a mortgage specialist or bank that was on site? Because those banks, to get those exclusive deals, most of them have to honor purchase price. I had a deal, Caledonia, new home, appraisal came 820, purchase price 1.0 something, off by 300,000. But what we said is we figured out, RBC was a bank. We told the client, go to RBC, go to any rep at RBC. You don't have to use a builder's rep, and figure out how the program works internally and apply to that. And they got with 20% down a mortgage at RBC. They had to add other people on title to make it qualify, but at the 1.0 something price. Even though the appraisal was 820, because RBC was forced to honor it. RBC is doing that with Deco, with Aspen, with Opus. So we make sure it's like, hey, make sure your team is knowledgeable enough to understand there's so many different options. Just because appraisal comes low doesn't mean it's the end of the world. But we all need to be working together as a team to make these things happen. And you know what? It is our job to protect the interest of clients. So we tell our agents and mortgage agents and whoever we work with, it's like, hey, look, we protect the clients. So we want to help you, but we're not going to screw our clients at that price. So you have to understand, if you want to work with us, this is the territory that we work with.
This is how we have to do it.
Yeah. I will not, put my license on the line to help someone if they fucked up. Sometimes you just have to say that I screwed up. Let me take the onus. That's why we have, all of us, we're not perfect. But that's why we do it. So I know we're running out of time. It's 1 minute. So that's why I tried to just the picture. But this is a great starting conversation.
This information, it's golden for a lot of people, especially, and for me, and because everyone's scratching their head, what is all this changes about? There's no forms. This was so much. It
was rushed. Yeah, it was rushed. It was so rushed. And it was horribly done. But what we'll do is
Vithu.
Okay, so where we left off. So what you're going to see in this space is there's going to be a lot of movement with TRESA, with Oria, and RICO. What you're seeing as of December 1st was a rushed rollout. And industry's gone back and said, you can't roll out like this. We don't have the forms. We don't have the training. We don't have a buy-in time. So I think we're going to be in this transition phase for the first 1 or 2 months to see how industry takes it. And what's going to end up happening is we're going to see continuous rollouts of updates in first quarter of 2024, and I think in January you're going to see another substantive update to what they tried to launch for December, but probably around mid-January, end of January, you're going to see another update.
Okay.
So what we should be doing is like, as we get these updates, doing the sessions more, so we keep updating people on what it is, because because I think what is in December 2023 will be completely different by Q2 of 2024. And we're going to get a lot more clarity on what these rules are, what these regulations are, what these
and then this will also kind of make the agent's life easier too, because all these people calling, hey, I want to see that property. Like, just because the agent's out of town, they want to use you for that time being, even just to show something, right? Whereas everyone's time has a value, so this will cut down to that chase, and then it's either you work with me or you got to bring an agent.
Yeah, and if if your agent's on vacation, no problem. Go tell the brokerage to get a replacement agent.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that's between you and your brokerage, so you figure it out. So no, I agree with you. I think there's gonna be clarity for everyone.
Yeah.
B, agents are going to be respected and their value is going to be shown. People just say, oh, agents make all this money, because all they see is a commission statement. They don't see everything else that's involved in behind the scenes to get that money, right? So I think you'll see value for the profession.
Yeah, and then agents are not going to cut corners too. Now everyone's going to be scared because there's money involved. You do something, it's not a tap on the wrist anymore.
No, and you're gonna see your broker of records get really heavy-handed. But usually they're gonna take 5-figure fines and not pass it on to you, or say it's okay, you keep doing what you're doing. No, they're gonna come hard on you. So you're gonna see like the crappy agents, the agents who don't know what they're doing, or the agents that are risk to the brokerage be out of jobs.
And then also let's wrap it up with this another quick piece of info. Like, what is the main type of clauses now that there's a lot more conditions? It's not a market from 2021. Now there's a lot more conditions that's taking place and whatnot. So what do you see on a regular basis now as per the conditions?
So the market right now, you are definitely seeing a finance condition.
Yeah.
You're definitely seeing home inspection.
Yeah.
You're seeing multiple home visits. Multiple appraisal visits. And like there's a lot of bargaining on the buyer side. They'll be like, stage deposit. They're doing, oh, you have a rental hot water rental furnace, okay, you buy it out. Before, in a hot market, you took whatever you could take, right? If they had 10 things rental, you would still absorb all 10 things rental. But now it's like it's changed. So you see all these clauses appear a lot more. And it's stabilizing. Now we're getting to a point.
And then that's also the part of the reason why the inventory is high, because there's a lot of people, they are expecting prices from 2021 and they're not getting it. It's in the market forever.
Yeah, the houses that are staying is usually if they're really, really crap houses or sellers with unrealistic expectations. In December 2023. Yeah,
perfect. Thank you so much, Vidhu. Thank you for all this information, and then we should definitely do another part for this. And I can't thank you enough for saying yes to this with your busy schedule and all that.
Oh, no, anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Until next time. Thanks. Bye.